Look at a grocery receipt sometime this week. Not when you are rushed. Not when you are already annoyed. Just look at it calmly. Then open your fridge and look at what is actually inside. That is usually where the real story is. Because most households are not losing money on food only because prices are higher. They are losing money because food money leaks out in small, invisible ways. A second trip for one item. A duplicate jar of something already sitting in the back. A bag of produce that looked fine on Friday and is forgotten by Monday. Half a loaf. Leftovers nobody saw. A freezer drawer that turns into a storage cave. And the important part is this. That is not a personal failure. That is a system problem. Stores are built to catch you when you are tired, uncertain, or in a hurry. Markets are built to make urgent trips feel normal. Households are built around convenience, and convenience gets expensive when it keeps pulling you back into the store. So if your grocery spending feels like it keeps drifting higher, even though you are buying the same basics, you are not imagining it. This video is about stopping the leaks, not panic buying, not stockpiling, not turning your kitchen into a project. Just a simple weekly reset that helps you buy less of what you already have, waste less of what you already paid for, and feel calmer every time you walk into the store. And once you see the pattern, it gets harder for the grocery system to quietly take your money. Here is the first thing to understand. The store wins when you shop without information. If you walk in tired and say, "I think we need a few things," that sounds harmless. But that vague feeling is exactly where extra spending starts. Because now, you are not shopping from a clear inventory. You are shopping from memory. And memory is where duplicates are born. You buy the pasta because you think you are low. Then you get home and find another box behind two other boxes. You buy the soup because it seemed useful. Then the pantry already had 3 cans nobody remembered. You buy snacks, fruit, bread, a backup item, a convenience item, and suddenly the basket has grown past the original reason you were there. That is how the grocery bill gets heavier without any one large mistake. Retailers understand this very well. They do not need to trick you with one giant trap. They just need to create enough uncertainty that your list gets wider than your actual needs. And once you have made a second trip for one forgotten item, the store has already won back more of your money than that item was worth. So the first defense is simple. Shop from information, not emotion. Before the next trip, do a 10-minute kitchen reset. Not a deep clean. Not a full organization project. 10 minutes. Open the fridge. Open the freezer. Open the pantry or cabinets. Look for what is already there. You are not trying to make everything perfect. You are trying to stop buying blind. Write down what you see, not every single item. Just the food that matters for the next few days. Leftover soup, opened yogurt, the half bag of rice, the vegetables that need attention, the bread that should be used soon, the frozen chicken, the beans, the tortillas, the fruit, the potatoes, the eggs. That short inventory is worth more than a fancy app if it keeps you from buying the same thing twice. Now here is where the money leak gets really interesting. Most people think wasted food means spoiled food. But a lot of wasted food is not spoiled. It is simply forgotten. That half-used jar, that extra onion, the open bag of salad greens, the container at the back of the fridge that was fine 3 days ago and now is too late, the frozen item that was moved to the wrong drawer and never came back out. Those are not small losses. They are tiny receipts hiding in your kitchen. Every forgotten item is money you already spent that never turned into a meal. And because it happened quietly, it feels less serious than a bad purchase. But over a month, those little losses can stack up into a real part of the bill. So the next step is to find the food you already paid for. Pull the back row forward. Look behind the milk, behind the condiments, behind the fruit bowl, behind the containers. Check the bottom shelf. Check the door. Check the freezer drawers. The goal is not to rearrange your life. The goal is to make the visible food the food that needs help first. That is where one simple habit changes the whole rhythm. Create a use-first zone. It can be one shelf in the fridge, one bin, one small section of a counter if needed. The rule is simple. Anything opened, anything near expiry, anything that needs attention soon goes there. Yogurt. produce, leftovers, half-used dairy. That one package you keep meaning to finish? Why does this matter so much? Because visibility is cheaper than forgetting. A lot of waste happens not because the food was impossible to use, but because it disappeared from sight. The use first zone brings it back into your decision-making. It tells you, before you leave for the store, what should be eaten before anything new gets bought. And once that zone exists, your shopping list changes. You stop making a list from wishful thinking and start making it from reality. Now let's talk about the freezer, because this is one of the most underused consumer protection tools in the whole house. The freezer is not a graveyard. It is storage. That sounds obvious, but many households use it like a place where food goes to be forgotten. The better way to think about it is this. The freezer buys you time. Not forever, just time. If you freeze food before it dies, you protect the money inside it. If you let food go bad before freezing it, you lose both the food and the effort and the money that went into buying it. So once a week, open the freezer and pull a few things forward. Not everything, just a few things. Ask a simple question. What frozen items could anchor the next couple of days? What do we already have that can be used up before it gets buried again? A bag of vegetables, bread, soup, cooked leftovers, chicken, ground meat, fruit, whatever is there. The point is not to create gourmet meals. The point is to stop treating the freezer like invisible storage. When you bring freezer food back into the plan, you lower pressure on the store trip. You buy fewer emergency items. You waste less. And you start using the food system inside your own house instead of paying a store to run the whole schedule. Now we get to the part that saves money in the most practical way. Buy support foods, not a whole new menu. This is a major shift in thinking. A lot of overspending happens when someone goes to the store and starts a fresh mental menu from scratch. That is how the basket fills up. New ideas, new ingredients, new extras, new backup items, and a bill that no longer reflects what was actually needed. But if you already know what is in the fridge and freezer, the store becomes a finishing stop, not a starting point. You are not shopping to invent dinner. You are shopping to complete dinner. That means buying the pieces that help existing food work better. Bread to go with soup. Milk to finish breakfast. Vegetables to stretch a meal. Potatoes to support what is already in the kitchen. A salad item if you know the protein is already there. A fruit refill if the bowl is empty. Small, targeted support purchases. That alone cuts a lot of duplicate spending. And to make that work, you need a short list of stretch foods that keep meals flexible. This is not about recipe culture, it is about household stability. Foods like rice, pasta, potatoes, oats, eggs, beans, and frozen vegetables are useful because they help connect the pieces you already have. They make leftover nights easier. They make smaller portions more satisfying. They make it less likely that one missing ingredient sends you back to the store. These are not magic foods. They are buffer foods. And buffer foods matter because the grocery system is full of little pressure points. The package is smaller than last time. The price is higher than you expected. The fresh item spoils faster than you wanted. The store is out of the exact brand you planned on. The week gets busy, the weather changes, somebody gets tired. Then one missing thing becomes a second trip. A flexible pantry lowers that pressure. Now I want to pause here and do a quick reality check, because this is the point in the video where a lot of people suddenly see their own kitchen clearly. Ask yourself this. What have I already bought that has not been used yet? What food is sitting in the back that I keep forgetting? Do I really need another grocery trip, or do I need to use what is already here first? That question is the whole reset in one sentence. And it works because it shifts the household identity. You stop being the person who reacts to the store, and you become the person who checks the system first. That is a quiet but powerful change, because once you start checking what you already own before you spend more, the grocery bill stops being random. It becomes readable, predictable, more in your control. Let me show you the middle of this system with one simple example. Imagine a freezer drawer with bread, vegetables, and a couple of portions of cooked food. Imagine a fridge with leftover chicken, a half-used container of sour cream, and some produce in the use first zone. Imagine a pantry with rice, beans, and pasta. Without a reset, those items become background noise. You go to the store, buy more, and the old food continues aging in silence. With a reset, those items become the plan. Now the shopping list is not 50 items long. It is a few support items. Maybe milk, maybe eggs, maybe fruit, maybe potatoes, maybe one fresh vegetable. Maybe nothing at all if the house already has enough for the next few days. That is where the savings come from. Not from deprivation, from matching purchases to reality. Here is another leak people overlook. A lot of grocery waste is not from big meals, it is from the in-between moments. The random snack purchase, the extra bakery item, the drink, the convenience food bought because somebody was tired, the backup item that seemed smart but was never needed, the quick stop that turns into a cart. Retailers love those moments because they happen when attention is low. So one of the easiest protections is to keep the shopping list short and anchored. If the item does not support something already in the kitchen, it waits. That does not mean you can never buy a treat or a convenience item. It means you stop letting convenience drive the whole cart. There is a difference between a planned support item and an impulse item that quietly turns into waste. And if you are on a fixed income or just trying to keep life stable in 2026, that difference matters even more. Because when prices stay elevated, every unnecessary item has a second cost. It takes up room, it steals attention, and it delays the food you actually meant to use. Now let's talk about the midweek check, because this is where the reset becomes a habit instead of a one-time project. Midweek, open the fridge and ask one question. What has already been bought but not used? That is the money leak check. You are looking for the items most likely to trigger a duplicate purchase. The milk that still has life left, the fruit that needs to be eaten, the bread in the freezer, the leftovers that can still cover one meal, the vegetables that are close to the edge, the sauces, the cans, the staples. This takes less than 5 minutes, but it can save you from a store trip that would have cost far more than 5 minutes to avoid. And that matters because the second trip is often where the bill jumps. You leave for one missing thing, you come back with one missing thing plus 3 extras. Or you buy the missing thing at a higher convenience price. Or you waste gas, time, and energy just to solve a problem your kitchen already had the answer to. That is why the midweek check is so powerful. It interrupts the reflex. If you're watching this and thinking, I have done all of that, and I still end up with waste, that is normal. This is not about perfection. It is about reducing the number of leaks. Even one avoided duplicate trip makes the whole week feel different. Now let's put the pieces together in a way that actually works in real life. Start with the inventory, then create the use first zone, then check the freezer. Then build the list from what is already on hand. Then buy support foods, not a new menu. Then do the midweek money leak check. That is the whole system. And notice what is missing from that system. Guilt, panic, extreme meal planning, big stockpiles, perfect organization. None of that is required. You do not need a beautiful pantry to protect your money. You need a visible pantry. You do not need a perfect calendar to reduce waste. You need a short, honest list. You do not need to become a different person. You need a different routine. That is a very different message from the usual money advice. Because the usual advice often sounds like the problem is that people are careless. But for many households, the real problem is that the modern grocery environment is designed to make waste easy and control difficult. Pack sizes change. Prices shift. Convenience pushes people into more frequent trips. The store layout encourages extra items. The household itself gets busy and forgetful, and the money leak keeps moving. So the goal is not to beat yourself up for missing it. The goal is to make the leak visible. Once you see it, you can stop paying for it. Here is a good enough weekly plan that most people can actually maintain. Pick 3 to 5 meal ideas for the week, based on what is already there. Keep one shelf or bin for use first food. Check the freezer before shopping. Buy only the items that complete what you already have. Then, once midweek, Look again and see whether a trip is really necessary. That is enough. You do not need 7 days of perfect meals. You need fewer unnecessary purchases. You need less waste. You need more predictable food spending. That is what control looks like. And if there is one consumer truth to take away from this, it is this. The grocery bill is not just a price problem, it is a visibility problem. When food disappears into the back of the fridge, the house pays twice. Once at checkout, then again in waste. When you shop without inventory, the house pays again in duplicates. When you make an emergency trip, the store gets your urgency as profit. When you build a use-first zone and check the freezer, you get some of that money back in the form of meals you already paid for. That is the full pattern. Money leaks out when food becomes invisible. Money stays with you when food becomes visible again. And once you understand that, the weekly grocery reset stops feeling like another chore and starts feeling like a small act of defense. Quiet, practical, effective. So before your next store trip, do one thing. Open the fridge, open the freezer. Look at what you already own. And ask whether you can complete the week with less than you thought. You may be surprised how often the answer is yes. If this helped you see your grocery spending more clearly, stay with this channel. There are more hidden pressure points in everyday spending, and once you know where to look, they get a lot easier to control.